I just ate shit going down the snow. There's the body scene, body marks. All right, look at this beautiful river. There's a little duck. Quack, quack. Oh yeah, I'll record me jumping in someday, but I need to find a tripod or something like that. But let's go. I just woke up on Sunday, 7 o'clock, because I sleep in on Sundays. This video is going to be about cold exposure, and I'm going to start the day. I'm going to start every single day by taking a cold ass shower. My body's not ready for it. That's cold. All right, cold exposure, baby. The ultimate brain freeze. The cold to most people is not something that they enjoy. For almost everybody I know, besides maybe a couple people, the cold is super painful and horrible, and it's just something that people don't like. Even like going outside to like get the newspaper, although I don't think many of us get newspapers nowadays, but going outside, like get something outside, just even that cold, you're like, oh, I don't like that. And I do the same thing too. And so it's a very interesting thing because it's not something you want to do, but yet people do it. And when you do it, you develop all different types of benefits. So the first time that I was exposed to the concept that like the cold could be good for you was by this man named Wim Hof. And I'm sure a lot of you have heard about Wim Hof, but he's known as the Iceman. He's like the king of the ice. And he has a crazy story. I don't want to get into it too much because I bet this video is going to be long enough anyways, but he's definitely like a leading example of what it is to embrace ice and integrate it into your life. So this was during COVID when I was watching YouTube videos and Wim Hof came up and he was talking about like how the ice saved him from like everything, his depression. It made him into this beast. Wim Hof is a beast. If he's broken 26 world records, and I mean, like one of the records, he ran a race in the desert at 104 degrees. It was 104 degrees temperatures outside, and he didn't drink any water at all. And he ran the whole marathon. And after the marathon, instead of drinking water, he drank beer. He was submerged in ice to his neck for an hour and 58 minutes. And he's just like literally, he's wild to the bone, but he attributes a lot of his mental toughness to the ice and like dealing with the ice and being able to be okay with the ice. And if there is one man who has conquered the ice, it's Wim Hof. So it's always, whenever you're trying to get into something, it's always nice to have a role model about like someone who kind of lives that life. And Wim Hof is definitely one of those people that lives that life. And he's always a great resource to have. At the time when I was exposed to Wim Hof and all that, I lived in downtown Denver. And it's pretty hard. I mean, there's cold showers, and I definitely did start doing that. Honestly, during the winter time, the cold water in Colorado is pretty cold. Cold showers can definitely, like, you put your head under there for like maybe 10, 20 seconds, you'll get the most intense brain freeze you've ever had. But it was hard to get the cold exposure, whereas I would like fill up my tub with ice and go into that, but ice is expensive, and I was just a college kid. So it wasn't very feasible for me to buy bags of ice every single day. So what I started doing was I would buy 2 bags of ice and throw them in the tub, and I would jump in the tub and that kind of was my first exposure to it. And I bet that water was probably like, I don't know, 45 degrees. I have no idea how cold that water was, but when you first get in, like, it's like, like it's shocking how cold it is. And there's only 2 bags of ice. And I'd get in there, and like, the whole thing about the cold is you have to just get over the initial shock. Once you get over the initial shock, you're solid. But sometimes that shock takes longer, especially the colder the water is, the longer it takes to kind of overcome that shock. But it was cool because like I would do that ice and then I'd get in, and after I like kind of overcame the first shock, I would like chill. And I did this for maybe like, I don't know, a month or two, but by like the third one I was able to do 15 minutes in it. But like, you're just like sitting in a tub. And whenever you're sitting and like not moving, it creates a thermal layer. So it's a little bit warmer than if you were moving. And again, the water was cold, but it was not that cold. And that was kind of my first exposure to, or me experimenting with it. And I remember the first time I got out of the ice bath, I could feel like my brain stem was just like, I don't know how to explain it, but it just felt activated. It felt like it was doing stuff, and it felt really, really good. But the more you do it, the less you get that feeling. So if you do it the first time, you should really cherish that first cold exposure, because it's probably the highest you'll ever get off the cold. But anyway, I ended up kind of ditching the practice of buying ice every Sunday because it's kind of expensive. I didn't want to spend the money. And I wasn't really committed to the ice yet. But I still did continue to take cold showers. So currently, I live in Durango, Colorado, and we have a river called the Animas River that goes right through the town. It's a really beautiful river. And I remember growing up, people would talk about like jumping the river during the winter. And they had this event called the Polar Plunge, where people do that once a year, and everyone just kind of goes and just jumps in the river and then screams and then gets out. But as a kid, I was like, that's crazy. I was like, I'd never do that shit. And so I moved back probably like 3 or 4 months ago now, by now. And I was hanging out with my homie Michael, and he's like, we went to go get breakfast, and we were hungover. And he was like, hey man, like, do you want to hit the river after we hit breakfast? And I was like, huh, like, I would have never done that if it was up to me, but I knew about all the benefits of the cold, and I was like, yeah, like fuck it, let's do it. And so we ate breakfast, and then we drove down to this like little raft drop-in spot. So the water's deep, like you can tread the water, it's pretty deep. And that's when we got our first cold exposure. This is in like fall time, so the river's like it's fucking cold as shit. It's probably like 40 degrees though, so it's not as cold as it gets, but 40-degree water is cold, man. Especially when it's like a river kind of moving, because you'll never be able to kind of develop a thermal layer. Well, I really didn't know what to expect. I knew it was gonna suck, but I had no idea how much it was gonna suck. And so we set a timer to like see how long we could stay in. And we started walking in, and just immediately, the second you put your foot in, you can just feel it. It just feels like needles are just like, just like stabbing you, like little elves are just like stabbing you in the leg. And you're like, oh God. And you keep going, and you go deeper and deeper. And then, of course, you got to jump in because, like, that's the whole point. And so we jump in, and it, and honestly, at this point, the shock is still hitting me. So it's not really as bad because, like, once I jump in and then get out, what most people do is then they run out the river. But we were like, no, we're gonna stay and try to do it. And once you stay in the river, that's when the pain starts coming. And it was so bad. Like it was horrible. It hurt so much. I remember my abs were like contracting so much that my abs were actually like starting to hurt because of how bad they were contracting. And I remember at this point I'm trying as hard as possible to stay in the water. This is hands out of the water too, because hands in the water is a whole different story, but this is hands out of the water, and I'm dying, and I'm just trying to like be like, Ember, like do this, like stay in the water, do as long as you can. And it was getting so cold that I could feel it in my front tooth. Like I don't feel it anymore like when I get in the cold, but for some reason that day like I felt it in my tooth. That's how cold it was to me. And I just remember being like, fuck, like I can't. And so I get out of the river, and then I checked the timer, and it was 30 seconds. And I was like, wow. It made me feel like a bitch. It made me feel like a true bitch. I was just like, wow, like I tried my hardest to stay in that river, and I only did 30 seconds. And it was a very humbling moment for me Very humbling moment. I believe in like kind of a holistic approach to life, which means like looking at the whole picture, you know, not just like focusing on one thing. And I don't like weaknesses, I guess you could say. And so I want to patch up all the holes in my wall to make sure I have a strong wall, you know? And going into the water, it made me realize that I have a weakness in cold. And I'm not comfortable in the cold. And it made me realize, like, wow, I have a hole in my wall and I need to fix that hole. So I made a commitment to myself to fix that hole in the wall. And I was like, all right, we're going to start going to the river every single day. Well, that was like my thing. But then Michael was down too. So it was nice because we had each other. But we started going to the river every single day. And at this time, I would go to the gym, and then after the gym, I'd go hit the river. And every day, the river's getting colder and colder. It feels colder and colder. So my first goal was once I start getting the river was to do 2 minutes, and then but 2 minutes with the hands out because once you put the hands in, it's a whole different story. So I got to 2 minutes with the hands out. Then I was like, all right, well, now I need to do 2 minutes with the hands in, and that's painful, super painful. The hands, honestly, for me personally, the hands are the toughest thing that I have to deal with when I go to the cold. But it was nice because during this moment or during this period of our time, I would be like, oh, hey, Michael, I did 2 minutes with my hands in. And he'd be like, well, fuck. Well, I did 3 minutes with my hands in. And we like hold each other accountable kind of because we didn't go every single day together, but we like send each other videos and like talk about it with each other. But we like made sure that we did it and we'd push each other. And so, like, within a month of us doing it, we were doing 5 minutes hands in to the neck, to the chin, you know? And it was like, we went from 0 to 100 real quick. And it was just really nice to have a friend to like do it with, you know? So I highly recommend if you do want to try some cold stuff, like try to bring one of your friends into it because you guys can, because misery loves company, you know? And it's misery. So after a month, we got pretty comfortable with the river. Like, obviously, every single time. After a month, we got pretty comfortable with the river and it got pretty, not say easy, but it was doable. And it wasn't like the beginning where we were like, oh God, like, fuck, we have to go in the river. Cause like when you first start going to the river, like going into that river, it's like, you're gonna face some shit, you know, like you're really gonna like, there's no easy way about it. Like it's gonna be painful and you're gonna have to do that shit. But after a month, it started becoming less of that, and we started becoming more accustomed to the river. And now it's been a month, and so the river's starting to drop to like 38, 37, 36. It's starting to get colder because winter's coming, and we're looking forward to it. The cold, it's like a drug, you know, like it's probably one of the best drugs for you, but you know, it releases norepinephrine, however the fuck you say that word. It releases that chemical, which kind of elevates your mood. It boosts your metabolism. It makes you burn white fat and it boosts your brown fat. It does a lot of things for you. And when you first start, when you get out of the river, you feel great, like stupidly good. You feel really good all the time. But those things don't last very long. And I mean, they do, but you just don't notice them. And then after a while, it starts becoming a mental game and it starts becoming much more of just like, I'm gonna do something that's gonna suck a lot today. When I first started going to the cold, uh, when we first made that commitment to go every day, I would wake up in the morning, and one of the first things I would think about was the cold. Like just knowing the fact that I had to go in that river, it was like almost scarring. And I remember I'd wake up in the morning and be like, fuck, dude, like shit, I have to go in that river. It's like those Rocky movies where Rocky's, you know, training to fight Draco and he's got a picture of Draco in the mirror. That's how I felt. Like every time I'd like think about anything, the river was just in the back of my mind, like, oh man, like because at this point, this is like when I first started, like I wasn't used to the river. And it's not that you ever get used, I mean you do get used to the river, but no matter what, it still is gonna be rough. But so for now, nowadays, my main practice with the river is all a mental practice of me just like doing something that sucks every single day and just embracing it. There were many days where I would dread going to the river. I did not look forward to it. And at this time, I was also kind of like looking into like the power of words and like the stories we tell ourselves and how important it is to choose proper words to speak to ourselves. And I realized when I was like be going to the river, I'd be like, oh God, this sucks. Like, I hate this. Like, why am I doing this? Like, this is so painful. This is horrible. And I like kind of like caught myself in a moment. I was like, Enver, like, I'm telling myself a story. I was pretty much just complaining and complaining and complaining before I even went to the river. But then after I get out of the river, I would feel great. So like that moment of complaining before the river was like me creating extra suffering on top of the pain, you know, because pain is inevitable. Suffering is something that we create for ourselves. And I realized that story that I was telling myself, I was just kind of creating suffering. I was creating suffering for something that was bad, but it's not as bad as I made my mind out to be it. So what I decided to start doing, because I feel like you can take two paths when you start like kind of realizing that you're telling yourself like you're complaining about something, you're telling yourself a story that's like kind of low vibration, negative. One thing you can do is just go neutral, which means like don't think about it. But that takes training and meditation, and it can be hard. When there's something like as tough as the cold, it's really hard not to think about it. It's there. It's like in the back of your mind. And so what I started doing was when I'd be going to the river and I'd be like, oh fuck, like I don't want to do this. I like stop myself and be like, no, Enver, like you should like just be grateful to have a river that goes through your town. You know, I really don't have to go out of my way to go to the river. Not only that, but a lot of people will never get the chance to experience that type of cold in nature, you know, because like when you're in there, like Durango's a small town, so there's nature everywhere, but when you're in the river and there's like ducks flying by, maybe an eagle will fly by, you'll see the mountains, like it's a very peaceful moment, and a lot of people won't get to experience that. Like they might get a cold plunge, and that's great, but there's definitely a little extra like spiritual taste to it when you do it in nature and in a river, you know. And then the practice started getting like, I mean, it's still tough to this day. Like, obviously, it's still tough and it's still cold, but it's much more bearable. But those 2 to 5 minutes are some of like the most beautiful. Oh, by the way, me and Michael, we did 10 minutes the other day. So, bang, it was 33 degrees and we did 10 minutes. That's kind of like our way to challenge, see how far we've gotten on our path of cold, I guess you could say. All right, heading down to the river. Gonna go pick up my homie Michael, a fellow polar bear in arms. And we're gonna, he said on the website that the river is 33 degrees today. I think we're gonna try to go for 10 minutes today. Should be a good one. Look at this though. See my key? So it doesn't unlock. This is what I have to do every single time. So it just looks like I'm breaking into my car every single time. Anyway. Alright, we're here at Meek Lay's house. About to pick up my homie. Gonna go hit the river. He doesn't know I'm recording. Fuck, I can't not smile. Oh shit. What up, dog?
Fuck.
Check out the tripod.
Sick.
Say what up to my peeps.
What up, peeps?
Alright, we'll see you at the river. Alright, here we are. River, baby. Essential as a towel, always. So today the river says it's 33 degrees. So we're gonna do 10 minutes to see if our training has paid off. This shit is slippery as fuck. Do I? I usually jump in like right over there. Oh, actually like oh shit. A couple times I've jumped over there. But dude, I went one morning and there was literally ice everywhere. But it was still enough so I could still jump in. So I was like swimming with the ice. After that, I was like, I'm going back to Dalton. Fuck this shit. Just a little bit, just a wee bit of ice. This is the worst part. Can't put anything to keep our shit dry. I also need to take a piss too. Oh yeah, shit. Here, let's see the website. Let me see.
See it?
Okay,
Oh,
okay.
yeah, there it
There
is.
it is. So water temperature 33 degrees.
Woo.
That's crazy. When I do a video of your phone,
I saw that.
it goes like stripes. You saw that? All right, what's the thermostat gonna say? Oh shit.
Shit. Might take a second. Just put it on this piece.
We'll go off the website. 33 degrees. We're calling it 33 degrees.
We're calling it 33.
Anyway, it's gonna be cold as fuck. It all feels the same. We're gonna do this shit.
I'm not looking forward to this.
Oh man.
The fucking sun is behind clouds. Fuck. Alright, ready?
Yep.
10 minutes for greatness.
Is it gone?
Yeah. And I feel like over here though.
It was lovely. Hey.
Is that kind of cold? Nah.
We're doing 10 minutes today.
Suck!
Woo!
God.
Whoa. Can't even like move my arms. Let me just see how red you are.
Got the 11 minutes out of the way for the week.
All right, I'm going to the car. Nothing like nice cold feet. Nice and cold.
10 minutes down.
10 minutes down. But anyway, so there's 2 to 5 minutes in the river. Like it's like some of the most those 2 to 5 minutes are the most beautiful times of the day. Because like you go in there, you suffer, but then afterwards, when you're like kind of over the shock and you're just like there chilling, it's very peaceful. The mind goes quiet, and it's like I said, you're like connecting with nature. I don't know, it's the river, the water, what it is, but you just feel like a little more connected. And I think part of that is like when you put yourself in such painful situations, you get rewarded based on like how much pain you put yourself through. Obviously, there's caveats to that. It's not always like that, but for the river, I find that that's definitely one of the things is you almost get rewarded for putting yourself in such pain that those 2 to 5 minutes are like the best part of the day. And then after you get out of the river, you're like, fuck. Like, now I have to go back to like the real world. So now it's pretty much winter. It's cold. The river's cold. There was times where we'd have to break up like 3 feet of ice that were like go out to the river, and we use like ice. It took us like almost 2 minutes to just break the ice before we could even get in the river, and it's becoming a problem. But I also started realizing that maybe for like hypertrophy training and like, you know, building muscle, it's not the greatest thing to hit the river right after I go to the gym. And so I decided to start going to the river in the morning, and that is way worse. The river, it like stings just a little bit more when you do it in the morning, you know? Because the river's been like sitting all night just getting nice and cold for you. And then when you wake up, I wouldn't do like first thing in the morning, but right before I'd go to the gym, I'd hit the river. So maybe like 7, 8 o'clock, I'd hit the river. And I remember the first time I did it, I did 5 minutes because I was used to doing 5 minutes, but I do like 5 minutes in noon time. And I don't know, like those couple of hours make a huge difference because I did the 5 minutes in the morning and it was brutal. And I wasn't treading water. I just stayed there. I remember like I could like feel almost like my calf was like shutting down. Like I could feel like weird things going on. And then I did the 5 minutes. I got out and my fingers were burning on fire. Like they always burn, but this time it was like extra burn. And I felt sick. I could like feel like my muscle like I drink a smoothie before I do go to the river and I could like almost feel like it was getting pushed back up and it was horrible. I felt so bad. That was one of the experiences where I felt horrible after the river, and I had to sit in my car for a second and just kind of just like calm down and just relax. But from that experience, like my fingertips, like these ones right here, they're like numb. I mean, I can still feel them, but like whenever I'm typing, it feels weird. These they just don't. It doesn't feel the same. I don't know if it's nerve damage because it's been like a month maybe now since it's happened, but they've never been the same since those 5 minutes. But it's all good because I can still feel them. I can still do this, you know. It's just I guess it's a tale of caution. Like don't go too hard too fast. You want to let your body get accustomed to the cold because the cold can conquer you. So once you start going in the cold, after a while, like your 3 minutes, it doesn't become easy, but it becomes easier. And so you'll be like, okay, well now I need to find different ways of challenging myself. And so my first way was of um, going in the morning to the river. But then I remember I watched a show called Limitless on HBO. It's really good. It's with uh, Chris Hemsworth. And he jumps into the Arctic, which is 37 degrees. So the Animas gets colder than that, wherever they were jumping in. But they were like treading in the water and I was like, huh, I wonder what it's like to tread in water. Because at this time, I really didn't know. I didn't do much research about the cold. We were just doing it to like, it was like the mental thing, you know, the health benefits we really didn't care about. And so I decided, I was like, because where I jump in, it's super deep. So you can take 2 steps and you won't touch the ground at all. So I decided, I was like, okay, well, the next step is for me to start treading water. And treading water is so much worse than just like kind of like staying there. Because, like I said, when you stay there, you develop a thermal layer. But once you go and start treading water, you can like feel the knives everywhere. They're just like stabbing you, you know. And like when you're standing in the sand, the bottom of your feet they kind of stay a little warmer because of the sand. But when you're treading water, the knives are stabbing inside your feet. So it was just another step. Now every time I go in the river, I tread the water. It's fun. It's like it gives you something to do while you're in the water. It's definitely harder, but once you get used to it, it's like nice. You get really used to it. So now my current practice is I do 3 minutes, so like 3 minutes and 10 seconds in the river, and then so I walk to the river, dive in, do my 3 minutes, then I go back down and I just try to hold my breath for as long as possible, which is like 20 seconds. It's so hard to hold your breath underwater in the freezing cold. It's almost like the air is like getting pushed up here, and you know you want to hold your breath in your like lower belly. But so that's what I've been doing, and then I just started also doing cold showers in the morning, like first thing in the morning. Like I'll wake up and I'll go get my water, squeeze a lemon in there, drink it, and then go hit the cold. And that is pretty cold because it's like the same water. I don't know where the water comes from, but it's if you hold your head under there for like 10 seconds, you'll get an insane brain freeze and it's super cold. But it's a great way to start the day, you know? It's like a little shot, you know? You're like, poof, and you just like, it wakes you up. And that's what I've been doing too. So I guess I'm getting like 6 minutes of cold exposure every day. If you are like iffy about the cold or if you want to learn more about the cold, I'm telling you, Wim Hof is the guy. You know, he's just like a student of life. You know, and it's so obvious, and he's just such He's a lot of people say he's a weird guy, and yeah, he is a weird guy, but he's just one of those guys who just kind of like was just like, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna go hard on it. And so he chose the cold and he went hard with the cold. You know, I mean, he's done so many crazy things with the cold. I was watching this video of him the other day, and he's like, I'm turning 62, so I'm gonna do 62 minutes in the ice, and he's gonna do it. Like, there's no doubt he's not gonna do it. But he's just like, he's such an inspiration, you know. And the reason I started taking cold showers in the morning was because that's what he does. And he's like, it's a great way to kickstart your cardiovascular system. And I mean, the health benefits are always great, but for me, it's always the mental, just like, I don't want to do this, but I do it anyways, you know, and I feel great afterwards. And so if you want some inspiration, you want some guidance about the cold, how to do it, Wim Hof is your guy to go to. If you do want to start your own practice though, I highly recommend starting with cold showers, you know, because like I said, if you live in a city, it's hard to get submerged in cold. You can buy bags of ice. Honestly, if I were you, I'd probably buy bags of ice and buy like 5 bags of ice, throw it in there, and then just do like we'll work up to your way, but eventually work up to your way till you're doing 11 minutes in one session. There's this guy named Andrew Huberman, and he has a study. He like reviewed the study, and in the study they said after 11 minutes of cold exposure, like throughout a week, that's when you start seeing the most benefits for your metabolism. And obviously you see other benefits, but that study was based on your metabolism. But so if you're just starting to do cold, you should aim for 11 minutes a week. You can do more though. I highly recommend to do more because the more cold exposure you do, the more brown fat that you create. And when you create brown fat, that creates more resistance to the cold. So you won't get as cold as easily. And I've definitely noticed that too. Like I don't shiver as much now than when I first started. When I first started, but now I don't shiver as much. It's much more just my hands. I feel bad for my hands. They get brutalized, but I mean, it is what it is, you know? And if you are somebody who's lucky enough to have like cold water, especially in nature or something, go in there. Like, even if it's just jump in and jump out, because cold showers are great. It's a great way to start, but there's something different about submerging yourself in water. And there's something even greater about submerging yourself in water in nature. It's like beautiful. There's something spiritual about it. And if you have the opportunity to do it, you should definitely do it, especially if it's wintertime wherever you're living and during the summertime it's really hot. Because, I mean, the cold will change your life. It really will. It's changed my life and only for the better. It's only changed my life for the better. And it's just an opportunity you don't want to pass up, especially if you have like the opportunity to go into something that cold. All right, that's my cold video. Thank you for watching, guys. I love you guys. Have a great day. Mwah.